Do you work from home, or are you a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and sometimes find it hard to focus, get deep work done, maybe sometimes even feel a little isolated? Well, you're going to love this conversation that I have with Stephen Puri, the founder of Sukha. They have created a fascinating application that helps people focus, get deep work done, and feel more connected to other people. I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Career. So welcome to the show, Stephen. It's great to have you here. We're both interested in a lot of the same things. I think that's how we discovered each other.
Indeed.
But
I discovered
let's
you.
start. Yeah, is that how that worked? I can never remember how I met
Yes, our
people.
conversation started. I reached out to you, and I'm glad that we do have so much in common. And I hope I have things to share that'd be entertaining and maybe helpful.
Yeah.
We don't know. The days
I think so, definitely. Some of the stuff I know we've talked about, it aligns very nicely with what I keep talking about for the last, whatever it's been, 7 or 8 years, and things that I know are near and dear to the heart of the folks listening to the podcast. So, and you've got some cool stuff that you're working on that I think is going to be of great interest to the folks that are listening. So let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing in your past and what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I was born. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to start there.
On a small farm in Kentucky.
Right. I'll give you the fun parts that'll be good context for the thing we're going to talk about. So, probably interesting parts of my story are I came to LA to go to USC, right? Spent a lot of my life in California. And my parents were both at IBM. So I grew up learning to code. Wow, there's Apple for you. Balloons. Thank you, Tim.
IBM's like, why do we get balloons?
I know. Gotta figure out how to turn that off. So what I say is, so when I was little, I was a code monkey because my mom was a systems programmer at IBM. So she taught me to code. It was just normal. It's like your mom was an ice skater. Oh, you learned to ice skate when you were young, right? Yeah. Came to LA and was actually interested in broadcasting. What happened to be there, and this is most of my career has been lucky breaks, not by design, but just like things fell in my lap. I was in LA when film went digital, when something was like, oh my God, we can do all this stuff in the computer. So I was there. I knew how to speak engineering, right? And I was personable enough that I could speak to a director or producer, be like, what are we going for here? And my career went really well. So produced a lot of visual effects for movies. We won the Academy Award for Independence Day's visual effects. And that sort of launched my career. Started a company with the director and producer of Independence Day and Godzilla and stuff like that. Sold that 4 years later.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm in my 20s. I've sold my first company. This is so easy. Why does everyone make it sound like this is hard? This is so easy, right? So I did that. And then I had a moment where I was like, okay, I don't want to wake up and be 30 years old and be making visual effects for other people's movies. How do I start to make movies? How to get further up the upstream? Sure. And worked hard, had some lucky breaks, got into the studio system, and eventually ended up, executive vice president over on the DreamWorks lot, vice president of the Fox lot, running Die Hard, stuff like that. So here's where the story gets interesting. So I had a moment when I was at Fox. I was in charge of like the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine, the Independence Day franchise, coincidentally, the bunches of the 24 movie, things like that. And I had another moment where I was like, wow, I'm going to wake up and be 40 or 50 years old and be like telling my kids, so daddy has to go to work and make Die Hard 11 now. It's really great, And I was like, I'm not sure that's the real calling of my life. And, from the outside, it's a fun job to have. A lot of people are like, oh, sure, senior executive studio. But the reality is you're making soap. It's just another factory. It happens to be slightly more glamorous than actual soap, but it's very similar, right? You have a product, you're hoping a lot of people buy it, you're trying to market it, you're trying to make it for a budget, stuff like that, right? So I got back into tech because I was like, you know what? When I was an engineer, I actually had a lot of control over what I was doing. And it wasn't just, hey man, the studio needs you to make Die Hard 5. We don't care. Just get it done, right? And so I started 2 companies. And this is kind of the answer to your question where this became very interesting to me and it sort of became like, I know what I want to do, was both those companies failed. Startups, because my previous success, I've raised over $21 million of venture across 3 companies, right? Second 2 companies raised about 3 for each, did not there's no inflection point where it's like, oh, this just took off like a rocket ship. There was a lot of like kind of,
Yep.
And yeah, you know, and it was,
I had that happen. Yeah.
Okay. It's just a moment where you go like, what am I learning? And the thing I learned was this. Both the companies that I had started, and this is going into the pandemic, were entirely remote.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a lot of like, oh, how does this work? This is this crazy. Everyone's at home, and how do we come in for meetings? Do we have meetings? Do we do these things? And the good thing is, a lot of how you do film covers the whole spectrum of remote to hybrid to in real life. Because you start out, and it's writers writing at home, writing in coffee shops, going to meet in restaurants with producers. It's very remote kind of stuff. Then it becomes hybrid when you start to get a little money. You open a production office. There's a director hired. Suddenly you have like 1 day a week you have meetings, 2 days a week you have meetings. The customer comes in. The production designer wants to know, like, what does this look like? Right? And then you're on set, $125,000 a day. It is real life in the office. Like
that's
you're
all
there
real
at 6
time.
in the morning to like 2 in the morning, right? So you do that, and then it goes back to hybrid. You're editing, you're doing post, it goes back to remote, right? And there are techniques, both as team leaders as well as individual contributors, that have worked for decades in film. But in some other industries, they haven't done that because it's been very much like, drive to this office, sit here. There'll be a guy or girl named your boss who will come over and tell you to do your TPS reports. You will turn them in Wednesdays at 8, right?
Sit in your cube all day. Yes.
Pretty much. Exactly. By the way, there's the copier, and, here's the fax machine. So that was the thing that really got me, where I was like, and read a lot of the books by the smart people. Let's be super honest. These are not original ideas, because so many people have written. I mean, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he wrote Flow, Clear, Cal Newport, got to meet, and just when you read a bunch of them, you start to realize there are only a certain number of productivity principles. Everybody has their book or books where they expound on their vocabulary and how they, but it comes down to simple ideas, right? And I was like, how could we take those, put them all together in one package, and help people get into a flow state, help people like do their work in a certain way, right? So we started developing that. And I was actually on my honeymoon with my wife, Laura. It's going to sound super weird, but this is kind of where the name of my company came from. Was I was talking to her and I said, these 10 days, we were in Bali, which was beautiful and wonderful. I'm very lucky we were there. We were gone. I was like, for these 10 days, even though I run a small company, no one's going to bug me. They're all like, leave Puri alone on his honeymoon, right? So like no emails, no phone calls. I said, it's a rare time in my life where I actually have time to meditate and think a little bit. And I was thinking, what should I name this company? Because there's every option of like, Focus App 14, distraction blocker mate,
Focus spelled with a PH. Yeah.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? All the awful names, you're like, I would kill myself if, I did that. So I said, I would love to talk to a couple of our members that do pay us in this early stage and maybe hear from them, like what they see in us, because I'm inside the bubble and I know what it's like to be inside. It's like when you write your own script, it's hard to do notes because you're like, it's great. And you need someone outside the script to say like, hey man, you could make it better in this way. Just think about it. Just these are my thoughts, very subjective, right? So I had a call, a Zoom for like 10 minutes with one of our members who's been a, loving member in these early days. And I was trying to get at him, like, what's your favorite feature? Like, we offer you, hundreds, I think it's now thousands of hours of flow music, all scientifically composed, like best practices, this many beats per minute, these key signatures, non-vocal. Or do you love like the smart assistant that coaches you and helps you? Do you like the distraction blocker? Do you like the timeout? And he wouldn't really name any of them. He's like, no. So finally I was like, okay, you know what? It was great. Thanks, Larry, for talking to me. And he goes, I think the question you wanted to ask me is this: why do I pay you? And I was like,
it's a good question.
On a certain level, yes. Thank you, Larry. His name's not Larry. But I was like, thank you, Larry. That's a way better way of, and more succinct than I was coming up with. And he said, so at 3:00, I can be playing with my kids, or at 6:00, I can be like, where the hell did the day go?
Sure. Yeah.
The difference is, did I open your app in the morning? That's why.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And I was like, that is way more powerful than anything I was coming up with. So of course, had dinner with Laura that night. We're chatting. She's like, how did some of your calls go? I was like, actually, this one guy said this thing that stuck with me all day. I said this to her. So we got home, we went back to the hotel, and we were like lying in bed, and she said to me, you know what I think it is I think, because we do, by the way, we do a lot of yoga. Lauren and I met in yoga. So there's a lot of like Sanskrit in our world. There are a lot of thoughts about prana and, things like this. And she said, I think the thing that's true of you that maybe is not true of many of these others, maybe the thing that makes you different is not flow app 14. It's
Right.
the goal, what you're really trying to help people with is getting to that feeling of self-fulfillment, of happiness. And productivity tools are the path, but they're not the end of it.
Right.
They're not the end
exactly.
goal. It's like have the best focus music. There's like you make these things so people can get to that sense of like, oh, I'm in my lane. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I'm getting it done earlier in the day and have time to play with my kids at 3 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, that word is actually Sukha. You know that word from yoga. That's that feeling of self-fulfilled happiness. She's like, what about that? And I was thinking, what about the Sukha company, the happiness company? And that's how I arrived at what I want to do with my life. When I grow up, which I'm grown up now, that's kind of where it all came from.
It takes a while. Yes.
You know what? We're all on our own timeline.
I like that. I like that a lot. The happiness company. Yeah, I think you raise a point that I think a lot of folks who work in tech forget, because I worked in tech for like 20 years. Our tools are not the end. It's not what people want. They don't want the tool. They want what's on the other side of the tool.
Exactly.
And we forget to talk about that. And that's what compels people to, like you said, open their wallet and say, why do I pay you? It's like, you give me what's on the other side of that tool.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story from film that relates what you're saying is we were working on this movie and Jeffrey Katzenberg was the head of the Disney live action studio at the time, right? And he had a very strong thesis that the movie could actually be bad. And he wasn't trying to make bad movies. He's a fantastic guy. He's amazing at what he did, right? But he said, the movie could almost be bad, but if the last emotion that a viewer has is the emotion you promised them in the trailer, they will walk out and say, you got to go see this.
Yeah.
And there's a movie we're working on where he's like, it's actually a good movie, but the final note is kind of like, it just sort of like lets you walk out. He's like, we need to do something that brings back the joy that was like 5 minutes earlier in the movie. And we choreographed this whole song and dance sort of routine with the actors, and the scores went up like 15 points. And it was just that thing of like, people remember how, like, I think Maya Angelou said that people remember how you made them feel. And so does technology. A great app is not about the buttons or the colors or the styling. It is how to make you feel.
It's true. It's true. No, I interestingly, I worked at IBM in my early career. It was my first tech job way back in like 93. And there is that subtle thing that's hard to explain about working on a PC. And I worked on Windows and Linux and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went and worked at Apple. And it's like, I think people who enjoy using an Apple device can't describe why, but it is that what you just described, which is I feel a certain way when I use it. And they can't put words to it, but they're like, yeah, I just feel better when I use it, or it feels easier. It feels like transparent. I'm not fiddling with settings, and it's all about the feeling.
And it is, you can through the user interface sometimes feel the creator. And if they were like, I just want to delight you. If they're like, I want you to have this experience of delight, you can feel it. And just like you said, the way buttons work, the way things are placed, it just has that feel. A friend of ours, Alan, was one of the 6 guys who wrote the original iPhone apps. The guys, that story about Jobs put them in a windowless office, was like, before I announce this new thing, like, I need you to have some apps that run on it, right? So he wrote Remote, he wrote iBooks, he wrote a bunch of those original things. And hanging out with Alan is always inspiring because he still writes mobile apps. Like, it's what he does. He loves it.
Oh, that's cool.
And his little ideas about like, oh, that's really cool. But Stephen, what if we're just this touch? Wouldn't it elicit a sense of delight? And invariably, and I hate and love him for this, he's right. You're like, that's actually better. We should do that.
Yeah, it's that delight. It is that delight. And I think this ties into the concept of how work feels and flow state feels and deep work that Cal Newport talks about. The difference between when I used to work for someone else and now I'm a solopreneur and I work hard, and there's days I work really long hours, but I get into that flow state and I set up an environment that is pleasing. So the music you talked about, I have a playlist that kind of has this ambient sound that just evokes an emotion, and I have a specific emotion playlist for the different types of work. This is my tax work, or my writing creative work. At the end of the day, I don't feel like I've worked 8 hours. I kind of lose track of time.
It is a flow state.
I think that's the secret. That's the secret. It sounds like you're creating an environment to welcome your community into a space where they can do work, get more done without all the distractions and interruptions, and enjoy it. And at the end, say, that didn't feel like a 4-letter word work. It was an enjoyable kind of work.
Yeah.
So cool.
In reading, and I never got to meet him, but obviously reading his book and thinking about, what he wrote, Cinema High had a wonderful sense of like, to get into that state you were describing, like you have to do something that is meaningful. Do you believe the outcome is worthwhile? You have to have some skills that apply to it. Like it can't be, Picasso trying to play basketball and it's not Michael Jordan trying to paint.
There's no flow state there. A lot of frustration state.
But when you do anything that's challenging, but you have skills to apply to it and you finish it and you get, like you said, into that weird rhythm. You look up, you go, oh my God, it's 3:00. I'm done for the day. Like that is the delight that we want to elicit. And that's why, by the way, we have 96% month-over-month retention in our platform.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because we don't promise a lot. We're like, you know what? It's an app. Try it. If you like it, pay us. If you don't, it's totally cool. Like it's free trial. But the people who sign up stick around because we simply deliver that, where it's like, I have my afternoons to do this.
That's fantastic. We should talk a little bit about some of the, I don't know if I'll call it the dark side, but I'm a solopreneur and I've been doing this for a long time, many years. My last corporate job was in 2010, so it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And I am a bit introverted, so I tend to work alone anyway, and I don't mind it. But I will find that days go by, and sometimes even weeks during the pandemic, where I'm just like getting this feeling of increasing isolationist feelings. Yeah. And it's not even that I really need someone else to work with, because my local community, there's no one that does what I do. And so I don't go and say, oh, I need to collaborate with this person. But having some people around me and the kind of the hustle and bustle of a coffee shop, that kind of thing, it does something. And it is something I found that I need. So I try to do that once a week now. And I'll take my iPad and just go sit in a corner and have my coffee and work. And I don't know what it is about that, but it sounds like you've experienced that too.
Oh my God, Larry, you're speaking to my heart, because I'll tell you this. During the pandemic, Laura, whom I mentioned, we met in yoga. We have a daily yoga practice. There was obviously a disruption to that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Laura was like, oh, listen, a lot of our favorite instructors, they have classes on YouTube. They're doing live streams. They're doing this. They're doing, that sort of thing. And I've never had the same feeling of yoga as I do in a class surrounded by other people who are trying to do something. Right. They're all like moving their bodies. It's a spiritual kind of like physical practice. And I love that. So I go to yoga I drive to a class. I know I could do it on an iPad sitting in my living room, but I drive to a class and do that. And it was one of the principles when we were building our platform. I was like, you know what? And you're going to laugh. We call it the coffee shop.
Sure. That makes sense.
In our platform, there is an area where if you want to, you can be on camera or not. You can chat with people or not, whatever. But you get the sense of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There are all these other people around the world at weird hours of the day, just dropping into work. And I do it sometimes. You can see me on camera doing my little thing, getting frustrated, coding, whatever. But, and by the way, one of the things we learned was it actually was too distracting to show people completely on camera, like on live video. So what we did, we tuned it with a lot of our members who were like, oh, I love this, but it's too much. Was we just now take a screenshot or take a shot of you like every 10 seconds, and it just refreshes. Okay. That way, when you do look up from your work in the coffee shop, you can see like the photos of people around the world working, but they're not in motion. So it's not so distracting, and it gives you the feeling of community without distraction. And that took a couple weeks of tuning. That was a half-right idea that we had to try and get right.
Yeah, because it is that balance, right? I want people to be there in the periphery, but what I don't want is the disruptor, which occasionally happens. Somebody's on their phone trying to close a deal and they're shouting on their phone. I'm like, dude, take it outside.
I know, right? It's just like with music.
Now you're messing with my flow state.
I want music around, but I don't want music that I sing along to. And
right, yeah. I love heavy metal, but I don't work to heavy metal. It's like,
yeah, right, exactly. I want music I love, but I want music that I love to sing to.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's a great insight that I think can help a lot of folks who are trying to create community. A lot of folks who listen to this podcast work in tech, and they are trying to create community services and tools and all kinds of stuff. They realize it's important.
An awesome pursuit.
People sometimes go too far in one direction or the other, and so that's a really useful insight. I like.
We're all guilty of drinking our own Kool-Aid a bit. You're like, oh, this is amazing. You know,
everybody's going to want this, right?
I know. And you know what's funny is I was thinking, someone was talking to me the other day about, you know, having joined the Sukha community and they see each other, and they pointed this out to me, which I thought was actually pretty apt. They said, you know what? It reminded me of like buying running shoes. Like Nike sells. Mm-hmm. An individual pair of running shoes. You can go buy the 2 shoes, put them on your feet and run. Totally cool. That's what you do, right?
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, 100 million people around the world belong to the Nike Run Club because when you run together, you're more accountable. You run further, you run faster. Like the days you're kind of lagging, your friends are there to be like, come on, let's go. And it brings you up. True. And some days you do that for someone else. Or like, I can bring you with me, you know? And that, she was right. There's like 100 million people have explained what you're trying to tell me. Right. It's just there's something about doing it together.
Yeah. Accountability is a huge part, I think. Yeah. I have a couple of communities, and the reason I've done it is that when you make a promise in front of other people, I am going to finish my website this year. People are like, where's your website? You know, and if you don't have that, it kind of, you put it on the back burner for the rest of your life, if sometimes. Yeah. But the accountability does make a difference. It really does.
Totally with you. Yeah.
So we should talk a little bit about 2 of my other favorite things that I know you
Here we go
as well. It's like,
I'm ready.
I'm a huge fan of day theming and time blocking. It's like 2 things that I've made a part of my life in the last 2 years. I guess it's been more like 3. I looked back when I announced it. What a huge difference. I wish I could have done this earlier in my career. Like the deep work I can get done, plus on the flip side, the times I can relax and just put work aside and say, no work today. I'm not going to do it. So tell me about how you've done that.
Oh, hold on. I want to turn that on you first, though. So I'm very curious. How do you and when do you decide on your day themes? Like, how do you go, this is going to be tomorrow or this is today? How do you do that?
Oh, I'm pretty consistent, and it will shift. And so every year I rethink what is my big strategy this year. So I'll have like one big goal and a strategy that's going to fulfill that. And I have that I focus on, and then I have smaller goals, and I do a lot of planning. So I journal every morning, and I have, what am I doing today?
That's
what
great.
are the 3 things I'm going to accomplish? Because I can't do 10. I'm fooling myself. What are 3 things?
You get disappointed if you're like, believe you're going to do 10. Yeah.
I used to do that. I made these huge to-do lists, and then I'm like, I only got 2 of them done. I feel like a loser. And I'm more gentle with myself. Say, come on, you're human. Deep work is good. Pick 3 things. Just get 3 things done.
So with you.
Much happier. So I have the big goal, and I think about what am I going to do to accomplish something for this big goal every day, no matter how small. Like if I write a single page in my book, great. It's a step closer. So I do that. And to support that, I started thinking about what do I need to make that happen? I'm kidding myself that I'm going to fit it into the free time in my life, and I'm going to, I'll do it tonight. Tonight never happened. And so I said, okay, let's look at Sunday through Saturday. And I'm going to say, what are these days and what do I want to focus on? Monday has become my community day. So that's all about my communities, messaging, meeting, setting up stuff for the communities, whatever it might be. Tuesday has become 100% my writing and podcasting day. So it's like, I'm going to sit down, edit my podcast, write, nothing else. I take no meetings. I don't, even though a client's like, when you meet on Tuesday, I'm like, no. I have to write like 3 newsletters, work my book. Wednesday's a recreation day. So I started this a few years ago where it's like every Wednesday I don't work at all. My wife and I go hiking or skiing or whatever.
We live in a great place to recreate.
We do. And I'm like, why am I not doing this?
Yeah.
And I did that intentionally because when you wait to the weekend, guess what? There's several thousand other people trying to do the same thing. Wednesday's great. There's not so many people out there, and skiing is pretty amazing when there's not a slope full of thousands of people.
Some people have a hump day, you have a mountain day.
Yeah, I do. And then Thursday, Friday are my client meetings. So I have all kinds of client meetings on Thursdays and Fridays. And I will work on a day on the weekend to do stuff like I'm working on taxes right now and all that. But that's kind of how I decide is like, what are the activities that lead to the success? A little bit of the atomic habits kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Of I can't finish the book I'm working on if I literally don't block time to work on the book. So who am I kidding? It's not going to happen magically. So I dedicated myself to that. And the stress is so low when you're like, know exactly how you're spending your days and there's like no disruption and you just shift. Like people say, I want to meet. And you're like, well, that will be Thursday then. That's when we're going to meet. Not today, not this day. And that's a dedicated day. It's like, I can't, and I was never able to do this as a corporate employee, obviously. But as a solopreneur, I tell people, if you're in your own business, who else is going to give you this chance than yourself? So go for it.
I think that is fantastic. Thank you for answering that. I will answer it also, which is time blocking. I'm very good with. And for example, every day from 9 to noon, local here in Austin, I block that out as focus time. Just don't set meetings unless it's something like a doctor's appointment, very important or something like that. Where it's like,
oh, sure.
But other than that, like you just can't in my calendar book a time between 9 and noon. Because in those 3 hours, I do most of the thinking I need to do in the day. And then the afternoons are free to be like, let's have Zoom calls, let's do podcasts, let's do other sort of pursuits. And I also find very much that in the morning, my mind is not only more energetic, but it's more attuned to doing that kind of work. And I remember there's a screenwriter, Ron Bass, who's very well known. And he said something that resonated with me when I was working film. He said, I don't even talk to my wife in the morning before I go write, because if I hear another human voice, I can't hear my characters as clearly.
Yeah, exactly.
And he goes and he just bangs out his writing for 3, 4, 5 hours in the morning. He's like, then I'm done for the day. It's like 10, 11 in the morning.
Right.
Happy to talk to anyone I want, but I haven't lost that golden sort of like freshness of like, I can hear my character talking in my head.
So I love you said that.
I'm not as good with theming. I have to admit, being, a tiny entrepreneur, like it is true. Some days it's like, this is what needs to get done today. And I can't tell the universe what's going to,
right. The site crashed. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. His goal will be getting the site back. You totally understand. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's interesting. The morning thing that has been something I encourage for folks too. Not everybody, you have to figure out your cycle. Everybody has their own kind of daily cycle. And some people are like, hey, I'm not good until 10 p.m. It's like, okay, then block off 10 p.m.
Yeah.
If that's your creativity time. Same way in the morning. I don't touch my phone first thing in the morning. I don't look at the news. I don't read email. Right. I don't do that stuff because it's like, it's going to ruin my day and my creativity goes out the window. So I sit and journal before I even touched any device to get that creativity on the page. Much like that, where it's like, I need to have no conflicting voices or thoughts or interruptions. And it's got to be down on the page, because I found that I lose it if I don't. I think I'll remember it. I never do.
Completely agree with you. Can I pick up on the creativity thing though? Because there's something I'd love to share with your audience that I learned about creativity, and it carried me through my film career. And it is in contrast to some of the very established productivity principles, brought down on the tablets from the mount, right? Yeah. I am totally in on monotasking. It is very important. There are a lot of activities where it's just like, hey man, dig down on this. Don't burn your brain context switching and then go monotask on something else, because that's really what multitasking is. Just finish this thing to its conclusion, right? So when I was like probably 20, I think I was working at this ad agency at the same time I was going to USC. And the ad agency did a lot of like trailers for movies, things like that, right? So I was running the writer-producer department, which basically meant we had the Warner Brothers account, we had Buena Vista, which is basically Disney at the time. And you get movies in, rough cuts, time code all over them, and they'd be like, hey man, this is coming out this fall, like we need to kind of do this. The head of the studio thinks it should be sold this way, or should be sold by this star, or this theme is really important in the world, whatever it is. And you're like, okay, gotcha. Right? So you sign it to writer-producer, go, hey, guy or girl, take this home or take this in another room, watch it, start to, what it is, right? So the agency was run by two guys, right? Super cool. And one of them came in. His name is Jeff. And he's like, so he was calling me Stevie. He's like, so Stevie, you know Bart? And I was like, Bart, like the guy who works in the vault. He drives tapes and film around Hollywood. Yeah, I know Bart. Nice guy. Yeah. He goes, I think you should give Bart a trailer. And I was like, Bart, the guy in the vault, right? we're not to say, is there another Bart? He's like, no, the guy in the vault, the guy in the vault. And I was like, you know what? You're the boss. You've been doing this for 20 years. If you have an instinct about it, what idiot am I to disagree? I'm like, fun. I'll take care of it. So I found him like a B title from Warner Brothers that had like a long deadline. It wasn't like this week we had to get the trailer, right?
Sure,
after a week or two, he's like, I got nothing. I can give it to someone else. They can still save it, right? So 2 days later, Jeff comes to my office. He goes, so how's Bart doing? I'm like, dude, I gave him the movie like 2 days ago. Like, I'm not going to bug him. I'll ask him on Monday. Let him have the weekend to think about it. Da, da, da. Jeff's like, okay, fair enough. What else did you give him? I was like,
what else did you give him?
I only gave him that one movie. Like, he's never written a trailer before. And Jeff's like, Stevie, let me explain to you the way creativity works, right? And what he said was solid gold. Even though he was kind of like chiding me for not knowing this, it was just great. He's like, Stevie, listen, creativity is about the other thing. I was like, Jeff, what do you mean?
Interesting.
And he's like, if you don't give him something else to concentrate on, the part of his brain that actually has the great idea, like the, oh, what about chocolate and peanut butter? With those, he's never going to have the chocolate and peanut butter moment.
Interesting.
Because when you're staring at the thing, you don't have the creative moment. He's like, that's not how creativity works. It's not like doing a spreadsheet. It's not like doing a production schedule for a shoot, right? He's like, you have to give Bart something else. But he'll have the great idea on the other thing, right?
Right.
And I was like, note to self. I'll tell you, my entire career, when I ended up, producing feature films, being a studio executive films, working with a ton of writers are amazing. It is absolutely true. And if you have ever experienced whenever I'm driving, wherever I'm showering, and I have that idea, it is completely because there's actually a friend of mine, Olivia, wrote a book about this called The Net and the Butterfly, about catching ideas. And she talked, like some of our friends, Adam created Siri, another friend, Alan was talking about, he had worked at Apple, another friend, Barney, had created Bing, and she talked about like, how do you get that idea where it just goes like, oh, I can move this forward in like a quantum leap way? And so much of it is that you need to occupy part of your brain that's sort of the adult, like executive brain. So that the part that's like the child, like default kind of brain goes, now no one's watching. I can do crazy stuff. And it goes chocolate and peanut butter. Here we go.
That's so true. Yeah. I use physical stuff. Like you just said, when I go on hikes, I have my best creative ideas.
Right. Completely agree.
Yeah, it's like interesting. Yeah. No, I know IDEO talks about that too. Where it's the intersection of things where the magic lies. It's not, like you said, you don't just put your head down and say, I'm going to be creative today.
Right.
It's the intersection of surprising things where it's like, what if we mix these together? Oh, that's so cool. That's a really cool insight. Thanks for sharing that.
I've happily been around a lot of smart people, and I've tried to shut up and listen.
Well, it's interesting that you've done so many different domains, and I think that's where most of the folks I know who are super creative thrive, is that they played in different domains and they bring something to bear from each domain together versus they've had their head down in one thing only. And
I'm having a son this year, and I'm super hopeful that he does a bit of that, and hopefully a girl in 2 years. But right now I'm focused on going to have a son. And Laura and I talk a lot about like, how do we give them the right encouragement and opportunity to see exactly what you said? Like, don't go so deep down one thing you can't see anything else, but sample a number of things and then sort of cross-pollinate them in your mind.
We've told our kids that. It's like, use your teens and early 20s to explore and have some fun. Because it's like life gets real serious later. You do tend to focus and specialize a little bit as you get older, unless you're crazy like me and you do weird stuff. But we told them, have fun, travel, go international. One of my sons spent a semester in Africa and went to school there, and it changed his life. It's just like, it's so cool, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, that's such good advice, and it's a great approach for parenting too. I think more parents should be willing to let their kids explore. And
Larry's parenting podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm all over the place, man. I am all over the place.
Just wait. I'll tell you one thing we laugh about is like, by the time our kid is going to drive. We won't have to worry about like, is he driving safely? It'll be autonomous. It's like, don't worry, the car brought him home. I don't know what he did, but he's here.
It's true. Yeah, the world is going to be very different in 20 years.
Did he crash the car? Don't think so. He doesn't have keys to the steering wheel.
Like a car. What's a car?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this has been fantastic, Stephen.
It's super fun
where
being
can
here.
folks learn more about you and Sukha, and where can they, sign up and play with it?
Well, I guess two things. Number one, if there's anyone that I can help directly, if someone's like, oh, I'd love to talk to you about this stuff, really easy to reach me. Obviously, my website is public, and my email is just steven@thesukha.co, the Sukha company.
Okay.
And anyone who wants to become part of the community and sample it, it's free trial, no credit card. Just we really want people who can benefit from it to find it, which is thesukha.co, which is THESUKHA.
Right.
.co, the Sukha company.
And I'll put it in the show notes too, so folks can, when they can go and find the links to find you and contact you and check out Sukha, because it's a lot of fun, and you can immediately see this is what I've been needing to help myself focus and just do some deep work and let my mind have some fun and explore.
You get it. Trying to do something to give back, because I've had a lucky career, and now is a good time to be like, how can I give people something that's helpful?
I love that. That's a great attitude. Well, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Johnny.
And that's all, folks.
Right.
Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.